Welcome back to my workshop. Now today, quite a simple project. We're going to make a bunk bed ladder. Let's get going. Okay, so I've got my material here and I've bought 3 pieces of 1.5 by 3.5, I think it is. Yeah, 1.5 inches by 3.5. Nice tape measure. And the idea is I just got to make a quick bunk bed ladder. Now the issue I've got is obviously because of the whole lockdown malarkey, I can't go around to have a proper measure up of the house. So what I've done is I've got some photographs sent, which I'm going to show up here, yeah, which show the measurements I need, and also the design, which is this. Okay, so let's see what we can do with that. Now first thing I've had to do is make a pretend bunk bed. I'll show you what I mean. So with the measurements I've got, I've constructed this, which is basically the same size as the rail on the top of the bunk bed. I'm going to use this for my reference so I can get the angles correct for the bunk bed ladder. All right, so let's start chopping some wood. Okay, so I've cut these 2 pieces of timber, just a little bit longer than I need, just so I can move them around the workshop. Now, obviously, I can't have the ladder coming too far out into the bedroom because it's only a small bedroom. I think ideally the angle you should use is about 1 in 4. So for every 4 up, you should come 1 out. Okay, but I'll go just by eye, which brings it to about 30 centimeters at the bottom. Now what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to cut the bottom. Now I need it so it's flat. So with this angle, let's get this one out of the way. So with this angle, which is what I want the bottom to be flat. So the easiest way to do it is get one of my bits of offcut, put it on the floor so we now know that that's level with the floor, and just strike a line. Okay, so that'll give us the angle to make it flush on the floor. So that's my first angle. I haven't actually measured any angles yet. Let me chop down the chop saw for both legs and then we'll come back. So I'm over here at the miter saw. I've got my angle that I've just marked from the floor. I've adjusted the miter saw to be approximately that angle. I'm actually using a laser this time, which I don't normally use. Right, so let me do this first cut, make sure I can get a full cut. Okay, let's do the second bit. Okay, so there's both the bottoms cut at this angle. So this is now, as you can see, it's flat on the floor. Let's cut the top. Okay, so the easiest way to get the angle at the top without actually measuring any angles is get your new cuts, which are now flush to the floor, on the floor, and rest it up against your pretend bunk bed. Just check again. Yeah, that's flat, and this is where I want my cut. Okay, so what I do is I'll quickly strike a line, pencil, okay, across the top as well. That's how big I want it. Right, so this is my angle. What I'll do is I'll cut that on both pieces of wood. So I haven't actually measured any angles yet, but I've done my horizontal cuts and my vertical cuts, and obviously my floor cuts here, and up against my pretend bunk bed here. So now if I put that flush with the top, it's flush here, it's flush on the top. Now obviously this angle is exactly the same as the one on the floor. Now I didn't measure any, but it turns out that the one on the floor is 15 degrees. So that means this is also 15 degrees. And because this is a right angle, this cut is also 15 degrees. It's convenient. Right, yeah, be careful if you're using this wood. I just dropped it and it dents really easily. I've got a nice little round dent there. But it's okay because I'm going to round off the corners because I don't want any splinters. Right, on to the next bit. Right, so for now, that'll be the uprights. That's all I'm going to do for the moment. Now, let's cut the rungs. Now, obviously, I want it to be about 30 centimetres wide, so about a foot wide. So all I'm going to do is literally chop all the rest of my elf cuts. I probably want about 5 or 6 runs. So what I'll do is I'll just chop these for now. These are just going to be straight cuts, about 30 centimetres. Okay, let's get back to the chop saw. Okay, so we're over here at the miter saw, and what I've done is I've used the function here with an end stop. I've set this to 30 centimetres away from the blade. Now, make sure I get the right side of the blade. So all I'm going to do is quickly feed these in and chop my rungs. Now, obviously I want to start with a nice square edge, which is one of the cuts I've just done, so that'll be fine. Up to the stop and cut my first leg. Okay, so that's all the rungs cut. Now, I don't know if you noticed, just a little tip here, because I use the end stop, there's obviously nowhere for this piece of wood to go. So you'll notice when I finished my cut, I waited for the blade to stop, okay? Because otherwise what can happen is as you lift out the blade, if it's still spinning, it can lift, and if you can see it here, it can lift the piece of wood. Now, obviously, if it's lifting the piece of wood, the blade spinning, it could fire this piece of wood all over the workshop. Yeah, that's not going to be very good. All right, so just a little safety tip. All right, next bit. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I've got my runs, okay, all of these cut. I've done one spare, sacrificial one, so I can try. Now what I want to do is on the edge here, I want to cut a 15-degree angle. So when the runs are on the ladder, the front face is vertical to the floor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this on my table saw. Now I won't use this angle to adjust the blade. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use one of these little angle gauges. This is a trend one, and all you do is you put this on the table, you zero it, then you stick it to your blade, you adjust it until you get the right angle. So let me quickly do that. Right, so that's it on my table, push the 0. So it's 0, then I stick it on the blade. Okay, and then release the blade and then turn it until I get my 15 degrees. Then lock it off. Okay, so now if we can see, this blade is at 15 degrees. Okay, that's more accurate than the gauge on the saw. Right, so now I have all of my runs cut at this 15-degree angle. Okay, so these ones. Let's quickly clamp it together and see if it all still makes sense. Right, so okay, now we'll just do this roughly for now. Clamp it in place. See if it fits. Okay, right, let's clamp it in place. Let's put it up against here, up against my pretend bed. Yeah, that sort of makes sense. These are now horizontal with the floor. Okay, yeah, that looks good. Okay, so before I start making some profiles and sanding things and making everything round, the way I'm going to fit these runs into the ladder is I'm going to use pocket holes. Now I'm going to use this, which is my pocket hole jig. Okay, I used this in some of my previous videos. I'll quickly show you how to use it. Now this is my scrap piece, my test piece. The top obviously is here. I've written test on it so I know it's the top. So I want the pocket holes to be in the bottom so you can't see them. And literally all you do is you mount it on the bench, you take your pocket hole jig, line it up with the edge, get yourself a clamp, let's use that one, pop that on there, clamp it in place, and with your pocket hole jig drill, I drill my first hole. Okay, so this gives me my 2 pocket holes here, which is where the screws go in, and then the screws come out this side. I might adjust this. This was my test piece, because these need to be a bit closer to the centre. Okay, so these pocket holes need to be further back. So let me try some adjustments and see if I can make that better. Okay, so this is my scrap piece. I've done all the pocket holes in all the other pieces. I've just done a trial. What I want to do is on the handrails, I want to put a little groove like this. So it's something for little fingers to grab hold of like this. Okay, and I'm going to do that by using my router table. I'll set it up with a little round over bit or a little round piece in here. Okay, and all I'm going to do is on the outside edge of my outer rails, I'm just going to do a couple of passes just to put a groove. Okay, so let me get on with that now. Okay, so I've got this little profile here, so little fingers can grab it. I shall sand it down so there's no sharp edges. Okay, let's do the other side. Okay, so now the grips are done on the handrails. What I want to do is all of the pieces of wood here have got a small round on the corners, but it's not quite enough. What I want to do is do something more like this, so it's a bit more child friendly for when they grab it. So all I've done is I've converted my router here, I've removed the fence, and all I've got in here now is a round over bit which has got a guide bearing on it, and all you do is you literally run the wood along the cutting piece and the guide bearing keeps it at a certain distance. So all of the exposed edges now I'm going to run and end up hopefully with a profile like this. Okay, let me get on with that. Okay, so each of the steps now is this round on the back and on the front. Not too worried about this edge here, I shall sand it by hand. Right, let me do all the steps and the handrails. Right, so these are nearly ready now. These are obviously the runners. Now obviously the top, once this is varnished, these are going to be a bit slippery. And if you've got small children climbing up them with socks on or whatever, that can be a bit too dangerous. So what I want to do is this sort of effect. Okay, so it's got some little grooves in it and they're all regular patterns, and hopefully that will make it a little bit more grippy. Now the way I'm going to do that is by using my table saw sled here. I've got a stop set out, and all I'm going to do is put my top side facing down. I've got my blade set so it's only a few mil deep, and then do a pass. Once I've done a pass, I've got all these spacers. Now this is just a piece of wood that obviously they're all the same thickness. I've chopped them down and I'm going to use these as spacers. So basically pass that over, put in a spacer, pass it over again, and that should give me a groove, then a groove, then a groove, then a groove, then a groove. Okay, so I'll end up with something like this with loads of grooves in one direction, and then I'll turn it around and I'll do the grooves in the other direction. So I'll get on with that. It's going to take me ages because there's lots of runners, and I'll get back to you in a minute. Right, well that took long enough. Now all of the stripes in one direction are done. Just got to set up the table saw now to do the longer runs. I'll do that now. Right, okay, that worked. We've got this. Okay, these need sanding down. Got 5 of those. I think they look all right actually. It's a bit like a swimming pool. But yeah, bit of sanding down. Right, I've got to have a tidy up because I've made so much mess. Right, I'll be back in a sec. Right, so we've got all our components now. We've got our rails and we've got our steps. Before I even start assembling it, I want to give it a bit of a sand. And I'm going to try using one of these, which is it's a Velcro back pad. I just bought a load of these from Lidl's, cheap as chips. I'm going to give them a go because I don't really want to flatten this too much. I want to get rid of all the furriness, but I don't want to flatten it too much. So I'm going to give this a go. See how we get on, see if it's any good. Yeah, I don't think it's going to last very long. Now it's just a few seconds worth. But it's done an okay job. Yeah, okay, right, let me get on with sanding all this lot. Probably a bit of hand sanding, and I'll get back to you in a minute. Right, I've just sanded these down to about 240. It's feeling quite good. The pad, yeah, it didn't last very long at all. But it was good for getting in these little grooves. So yeah, it's okay. Right, what I'm going to do quickly on these rails is on the bottom corner here. Yeah, rather than little toes being stubbed, I'm going to quickly round these off. Yeah, it'd probably be best to be safe than sorry. So let me quickly round these off. Right, so before we screw it all together, I've just had a quick check of all the angles to make sure they're all okay. Last thing you want is a wibbly wobbly ladder. Right, the runs have got to be equal distance. Doesn't matter what their distance is, as long as they're all equal. Yeah, so this must be the same as this, must be the same as this, must be the same as this. If it isn't, whoever's using the ladder will stub their toes, or they'll miss a run, or they'll misjudge it, or they'll fall off, and then it's your fault. Okay, so what I've done is I've selected where I want my top run and where I want my bottom run. Now the bottom run is about 6 inches from the bottom, and the top run is about the same. So I've marked this point with a little pencil, marked this point with a pencil, then half that distance, which gives me where my middle one is going, and then half that distance again, which tells me where the others are going. I've quickly marked one side, and now I can screw those in. So all I've done where my mark is, I'm going to put a little square up against it, and that will tell me where the bottom of the run's going to be. I can screw 2 screws into this side on each of these, and then I'll put the other side on. Okay, so let's screw one side together. Right, where are we? Right, I've just done a load off camera because this was a bit more tricky than I expected. Now what I'm trying to do is screw it together finally, but what I've had to do is make a quick framework up, which I know is at right angles, because I was screwing it together and it was actually going out of square. So what I've done is I've put a crossband across here, okay, and then another one here, which I know this is at right angles. Then the bottom of the ladder rests on this one, the side rests on this one, so I know it's then square. Then I've clamped it together using these clamps, this one and this one, and then I'm individually checking each rung to make sure it's square before I screw it together, because what's happening is it's all twisting and moving, and also what I've got to do is make sure that the bottom or the back of each rung is flat against the bench, because the rungs were lifting up, the back rail was moving away. It was a nightmare, but I've got the top and the bottom rungs in now, they're screwed in. Just got to do the middle three, and then we'll try and stand it up, because if it's slightly out of square, as soon as you stand it up, it's going to be all tippy and wibbly wobbly. Right, let me carry on with that. I'm sure you don't want to watch that. Right, so the ladder's almost complete. I just need some hooks to go over the bed frame to stop it from falling away from the bed. Now obviously it's now too late for the shops, and I need a metal bracket. So what I'm going to do is I've got this, which I've just found in the shed, which is a hanging basket bracket. And what I'm going to do is try and take this off of here and cut this off of here and use this piece for both the hooks. Now I don't know if this is going to work or not, so let's give it a go. Of course, I'm going to use this. It's my favourite. I need a hacksaw. Right, so I've managed to cut this off of here, so I've now got my piece of metal. Don't know if any of you noticed, I was actually grinding with a cutting disc. Don't do that. Right, I'm going to cut this in half, see what we've got to play with. Right, so we've got our two pieces of metal, which is nice. Okay, salvage those from the hanging basket bracket. Now we don't like working in metal. Look at the mess. Look, it's supposed to be a wood shop. Right, I'm going to drill some holes in these and then attempt to bend them. Okay, so I've marked out my my two brackets here with where I want them to bend. In theory, this will be the first bend, second bend, and then I'll have the two screws for screwing it actually to the ladder. Now I'm going to use a automatic centre punch and then drill it with a 6mm drill bit. Now this is a high-speed steel drill as opposed to a braid point, which is this. This is for wood, this is for metal. Don't get them mixed up. Right, I think I'll give these a quick coat of primer and then spray them with some black. leave that to dry. Then the first coat of black. I'll do that again in a minute. Okay, so my hanging brackets are now black. They're not quite dry yet, but they're black. I want these on, obviously on this edge here, but I want them to be flush. So basically I'm going to draw around them. Oh, it's still not wet, it's still dry. Just going to draw around them and then chisel out to about 2 millimeters deep. So let me get on with that. Okay, so now my rebates are cut for both of the hanging brackets. I've just got to give this a couple of coats of wood stain, which I'm going to use this really dodgy old can of antique pine wood stain. It's got to be antique pine to match the rest of the bunk beds. So a coat of that, and then a couple of coats of clear varnish, I think. I've sanded it all down to about 250, 240, 250. Right, let's start doing some staining. Oh no, I thought I was making a mess. What's going on here? Look, it's everywhere. Oh, I got a hole in the bottom of my tin. Oh no. Oh no. Quick, panic. Right, so here we go. We've got the first coat of colour on it. Just going to leave that to dry properly. It didn't go on very well. And we had a bit of a disaster here. It just leaked everywhere. Look, it's all over the floor and all over my bench. So I'm going to leave that now to dry, and then I'm going to hit it with a little bit of wire wool, then a clear varnish, and then it's job done. Right, let's let it dry. Right, we are nearly done. Now I've just got to mount the two brackets. Now the way I did that was put it onto my pretend bed, then offer the ladder up, and that gave me approximate position where these have got to go. Quickly marked it with a pen, and now I'm just going to drill some guide holes and put some screws in it. Let's get on with that. Right, it's done. So that's it, it's finally finished. The whole thing is complete now. It's got a coat of varnish on it. I may give it another coat, let this one dry thoroughly. The steps here, I've got the anti-slippiness about them, which seems to be working okay. I've got my little logo in here. Ta-da! The hooks are on the end. Now these fit quite well on the pretend bunk bed. Yeah, I'm quite happy with that. And the feet. Okay, so well, I hope you enjoyed this video. It was a bit long, but you could use those principles for making that ladder, for making any size ladder, whether you want to make a loft ladder or just something to get into a blanket cupboard or something. But the basic principles, I mean, for 2 pieces of construction timber that I use for that, it's great. I mean, it took a bit of time, but it's a nice thing. Now I shall be giving this to the boys as soon as I get a chance, and then they can actually try it on the bed. Right, thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Yeah, you can't even see it. Let's try it again. Okay, so now the grips are done on the top rails. Let's try it again. Oh, Nasty head. Okay, you're right up there. The bottom on the floor so it's flat. Floor. Crash. Ah. Bye, Barry.